All right, so we're going to go over the bones of the cat and the dog. So we have our skull bone up here, and the skull has a lot of different bones that we'll cover in another video. And then we have our first section of vertebrae here, and these are the cervical vertebrae. There's 7 of them in the cat and the dog. This first one, C1, is called the atlas, and then C2 is the second cervical vertebrae, and its name is the axis. The next section of vertebrae we have here are the thoracic vertebrae. The cat and the dog have 13 thoracic vertebrae. Each thoracic vertebrae does have a rib associated with it on each side. So there are 13 ribs as well, sets of ribs. Next we have the lumbar vertebrae, or the vertebrae of the lower back, and that's here. The cat and dog also have 7 lumbar vertebrae. The next section we have is the sacral vertebrae, right here. And there are 3 of those in the cat and dog, and they are fused together. The last portion of vertebrae for you to know are the coccygeal vertebrae or the caudal vertebrae. And these are the vertebrae that make up the tail, and we have a variable number of those depending on how long the tail is or if the tail has been docked. Another part of our cat skeleton to know would be the sternum, and that's this low bone here where the ribs connect on the ventral aspect of the animal. The sternum has 2 portions that you need to be aware of. The most cranial portion is called the manubrium, and the most caudal portion is called the xiphoid. The last bone in our axial skeleton, or that's our central skeleton, that we don't really have a model of would be the hyoid bone, which would be right here in the neck to hold the airway open. Oh, and working our way down to the front limb, we have multiple bones here in the front limb to go over. Next we have the scapula here. A unique shaped bone. There are parts of the scapula to know that are covered in the next video. Cats have a clavicle that you can see here. That's unique to the cat species. Dogs don't have clavicles, but the cat does. Next, the large bone in the arm here is the humerus. And it connects to the lower portion of the arm where there's 2 bones. The top one here is the radius, and then the longer one that makes up the back of the elbow is the ulna. We have a group of bones here that are called the carpal bones. There's one specific carpal bone to know called the accessory carpal bone, right below there, and we'll see a better version of that on the horse limb. Then we have our metacarpal bones. They're bones that would make up our hand. They have 5 metacarpal bones, and they're numbered from 1 to 5, from medial to lateral. And then finally we have the digits, or phalanges. And they have those numbered as well from medial, or the inside, to the outside, or lateral, from 1 to 5. Then coming back to our pelvic limb, the first bone we have here is the pelvis. The pelvis is broken up into multiple spots. The first part on the top here is called the ilium. The bottom part is called the ischium. And then the middle portion is the pubis. Other parts that you need to be familiar with on the pelvis will be the large holes. Those are called the obturator foramen. The part where the 2 halves of the pelvis come together in the middle of the pubis is called the pubic symphysis. And the part where our femur or leg bone connects to the pelvis on the pelvis is called the acetabulum. Moving our way down the leg, we have the large leg bone here called the femur. The kneecap, kind of floating in space over here, is called the patella. We have two bones that make up the lower leg. The larger one is the tibia, and then the small one is the fibula. On our way down to our next group of bones here, the tarsal bones. We have one extra tarsal bone you can see it's labeled here already with the number 11, and that's the calcaneus. Then we have the bones that would make up your foot, still part of the leg in the dog, and these are the metatarsal bones. Metatarsals are also numbered 1 through 5 from medial to lateral, although they don't have a number 1 metatarsal, but we still leave it as a placeholder. Then we have our digits or phalanges, again numbered from medial to lateral, number 1 through 5. If a dog has a dew claw, that would be digit number 1. If they don't have a dew claw, we just start the numbering on their first weight-bearing toe, and that will be number 2. All right, so that's a review of the skeletal system in the cat and the dog.